The Golden Age of Islam, which began in the 8th century, was a period of unprecedented prosperity, intellectual growth, and cultural development across the Islamic world. At the heart of this Golden Age was the city of Baghdad, which rose to become a global hub for learning and progress. During this era, Baghdad was not just the political capital of the Abbasid Caliphate, but also the intellectual and cultural center of the Muslim world. With its population reaching over 1 million people, it was a bustling city, brimming with scholars, scientists, and artists. One of the key landmarks of this vibrant city was the Beit al-Hikmah, or House of Wisdom. This monumental library housed an enormous collection of manuscripts and texts, covering subjects ranging from literature and philosophy to astronomy, medicine, and mathematics. Scholars from across the world traveled to Baghdad to study in this prestigious institution, which fostered an environment of intellectual exchange and innovation. The Abbasid Caliphate, which ruled Baghdad during this period, provided financial support to these scholars, further accelerating the progress in various fields. The House of Wisdom, as the largest library in the city, was the epicenter of this scholarly activity. It attracted scholars from all over the world, eager to immerse themselves in the vast pool of knowledge it contained. This library not only preserved ancient knowledge but also contributed to the creation of new ideas, making it a vital resource for the intellectual renaissance of the time. Baghdad's prosperity during this period was not limited to knowledge alone. The city became known for its advancements in art, architecture, and culture. It was a time of great artistic achievement with magnificent buildings, beautiful calligraphy, and intricate designs that still resonate in Islamic art today. The Golden Age of Islam was a time when science, literature, and philosophy flourished, and Baghdad stood as a shining example of the intellectual power of the Islamic world. However, despite its wealth and cultural brilliance, Baghdad's fortunes were not to last forever. Like all golden ages, it too faced challenges that would eventually lead to its downfall. The greatest of these challenges came from the Mongols, a nomadic people from the steppes of Central Asia who were to change the course of history forever. The Mongols were a force to be reckoned with. Under the leadership of Genghis Khan, they united various nomadic tribes and embarked on a campaign of conquest that would spread across Asia, Europe, and the Middle East. The Mongols' war strategies were brutal and effective, built on their mobility, speed, and ruthless tactics. In contrast to the settled Abbasid Caliphate, which had grown complacent in its wealth and power, the Mongols were constantly on the move, seeking new territories to conquer. The Abbasids, under the leadership of Caliph al-Mustasim, had become politically and militarily weakened by the time the Mongols began their expansion into the Middle East. Despite the increasing threat from the Mongols, al-Mustasim and his advisors remained largely indifferent to the danger. The Caliph believed that the Muslim world would unite in defense of Baghdad if the Mongols attacked, but this was not the case. The Abbasids had alienated many of their subjects, and the anticipated support from neighboring Muslim regions failed to materialize. The Mongols, led by Hulagu Khan, the grandson of Genghis Khan, were moving steadily towards Baghdad. They had already conquered large swaths of territory, including Persia, and were now focusing their attention on the Abbasid capital. The Abbasid Caliph, despite receiving warnings from the Mongols, refused to believe in the seriousness of the threat. The Caliph's Grand Vizier, a man with his own motivations, may have played a role in downplaying the danger. It is even believed by some that the Grand Vizier may have secretly invited the Mongols into the city, although this remains a subject of debate. In January of 1258, Hulagu Khan sent a letter to Caliph al-Mustasim demanding the city's surrender. In response, the Caliph issued an ultimatum, refusing to yield to the Mongols and daring them to lay siege to the city. This decision would prove to be a tragic miscalculation. The Caliph's belief that the Muslim world would come to his aid was misplaced, and the city's defenses were woefully inadequate to face the Mongol onslaught. On January 29, 1258, the Mongols laid siege to Baghdad. Despite the Caliph's initial defiance, the situation quickly deteriorated. The Abbasid army, poorly equipped and outnumbered, stood little chance against the Mongol forces. The siege lasted for several weeks, with the Mongols cutting off supplies and laying waste to the city's defenses. As the situation grew increasingly dire, Caliph al-Mustasim made the desperate decision to negotiate with Hulagu, but by then it was too late. The Mongols had already made up their minds. On February 10, 1258, Caliph al-Mustasim unconditionally surrendered to the Mongols. The anticipation in Baghdad grew as the citizens awaited the outcome of the surrender, but little did they know that the worst was yet to come. On February 13th, Hulagu and his army entered the city, and the brutal pillaging began. The Mongols gave one warning to the city's Nestorian Christians, to lock themselves inside their churches and not come out. They were spared from the horrors that followed, as Hulagu had promised them protection due to his close ties with Nestorian Christianity. For the rest of Baghdad, however, there was no mercy. The city was ransacked, and its inhabitants, both noble and common, were slaughtered. Thousands of people were executed, including 3,000 nobles, and the city was set ablaze. As for the fate of Caliph al-Mustasim, several theories have emerged. According to one account, he was imprisoned in a room filled with his own treasure and left to starve to death. The famous traveler Marco Polo is said to have recorded Hulagu's words to the Caliph, telling him to eat his wealth as he would be unable to do so much longer. Another account suggests that the Caliph was wrapped in a rug and trampled to death, in a bizarre attempt to prevent the shedding of royal blood. The destruction of Baghdad was a catastrophic loss, not just for the Abbasid Caliphate but for the entire world. The death toll is estimated to have been anywhere from 90,000 to 1 million, including both military and civilian casualties. The city was almost completely destroyed, and its libraries, including the House of Wisdom, were looted and burned. The Tigris River ran red with blood from the massacre, and it was later said to have turned black from the ink of the thousands of manuscripts that were thrown into the water. The fall of Baghdad marked the end of the Islamic Golden Age, an era of intellectual and cultural brilliance that had shaped the course of human history. The loss of so much knowledge and progress was a tragedy that still resonates today. The destruction of the House of Wisdom meant that countless texts and manuscripts were lost forever, depriving future generations of valuable insights and discoveries. The fall of Baghdad was not just the fall of a city. It was the fall of a civilization, one that had once been the beacon of knowledge, science, and art in the world. The destruction of Baghdad in 1258 was more than just a military conquest. It was a profound loss for humanity. The Islamic Golden Age had brought about advances in science, mathematics, medicine, and philosophy that had shaped the development of the modern world. The fall of Baghdad, and the subsequent loss of so much knowledge, marked the end of an era that would never be replicated. The House of Wisdom, once a symbol of human achievement, would never again see the light of day. The Golden Age of Islam, with its thriving intellectual and cultural contributions, came to a tragic and abrupt end.